Hi, welcome to episode 4 of this video series I'm doing titled Favorite Song I Taught This Week. Technically, this is the favorite song I taught last week because I'm a little behind, but nonetheless, this week's submission comes from a Friday afternoon student, Adam Cohn, with this awesome choice of songs that he wanted to learn. It's the Beatles classic, I've Got a Feeling, from the Let It Be album and rooftop concert. So anyway, I'm going to break the song down into 5 parts. We have the main riff, which is also played through the verse and the chorus. We have a pre-chorus. We have a little post-chorus guitar part that's sort of harmonized with the keyboards. I'll kind of talk about what the keyboards do as well. The bridge and a lead part that kind of functions like a solo or just part of the bridge, but I won't be too descriptive about that. It's kind of loose, but I'll give you the basic idea on that. It's a lot to talk about. So away we go. So the main riff is played like this. That's the main riff. So what is going on with that? A lot of good technique and fun stuff here. So what you have is you have an A chord, and you're playing it barred from the D string down, and your pinky is on the high E. It makes for a nice chord. You really have to have a nice wide open reach, like you're holding a big burger or a football or something. Your hands just have to be nice and open here. And so a lot to talk about here. So what they're doing is they're using the concept of cross picking. For those of you that don't know what that is basically it's when you're picking across the guitar through a chord, and you're not really playing multiple notes on one string. You're playing one string at a time and jumping around. The concept is pretty easy once you get it, but for those of you that are new to the concept, this may take a minute. May want to pick an easier song that uses the same concept, because the pattern of this song is a little bit hard. I had to really focus on this so it wouldn't mess up the video. But the idea is basically whatever string you're picking, the pick should go the direction that leads you to the next string you're picking. So the pattern in this song is that you're playing A, G, E, D, G, B, D, E, G. That's a lot. I don't even know how many strings I just said. Is that 9, 10? A, G, E, D, G, B, D, G, B, yeah. Then D, E, G. Yeah, I think that's 9, but nonetheless, that's the idea. So if I'm picking A, G, E, then I'm going D, G, B, and then I'm going D, E, G. I'm going to go down A, down G, up E, because I'm going back to D here. Then I'm going down for D, down for G, up for B, because I'm headed back this way to D. I'm going to go down here because I'm going to E that direction. So I'm going to come up, and then I'm going to hit the G here, up, because I'm ultimately going back to the beginning A right there. That's a mouthful. I'm going to not waste any more video space on that, so just rewind the video if you need to catch that again. So here's what the pick is doing. Now, in light of all of that, the left hand has a little trick in the middle of all of that picking. So I'm going A, G, then when I hit D and then G here, before I hit that B string, they hammer on this chord, which is the 4th fret of the D string, the 3rd fret of the B. Sorry. And then they hit the B string up. D string, E, then G. All the while holding that chord. So it's basically 2 chords, A, and this chord can be interpreted one of 2 ways. It's either called D over A, which is the easiest way to think about it. Even jazz musicians would probably prefer to see that chord in their chart. But it functions as an A6 sus4. They're the same exact thing. So either way, G, A, G, E, D, G, hammer. That's a good place to start. A, G, E, D, G, hammer. Once you do that, you're going to go B, D, E, G, like so. Last note was a little dead. So here we go. That was a little sloppy. It's really hard to do that real slow and hold it out and talk through it, because I'm getting tired and it hurts. So anyway, That's the main riff. Okay, so great. On to the next part. So you do that at the intro. And before we really talk about anything else, the main thing to kind of catch is learn that part like it is. Because that's how it's played at the beginning of the song. And it's pretty consistent. They play it picked the same way. But as the song goes on, you can let it go. Just keep that feel going and with that hammer on in the right place in the groove. They really don't play it exactly like that throughout the song. It gets a little looser, but the spirit of that picking and those two chords do stay intact, you know. So you can kind of get out of it, but like I always tell students, play it by the rules before you bend the rules. Like really learn how to play it right before you decide to kind of just slough through it. So anyway, moving on. The pre-chorus part turns into like a psychedelic version of Johnny Be Good. They basically start playing triplets like this. And what that is it's an open G string and a B string, 5th fret, but you're sliding into it and you're playing a triplet groove where you're basically playing 8th note triplets, and you're going 1 pullet, 2 pullet, 3 pullet, 4 pullet, and every time you hit the beat, you're sliding into that note. Like 1, 2, 3, 4. Traditionally, that's usually played as like a 2-string group where you're really playing the 5th fret of D and the 5th fret of E. But that sounds too smooth. The Beatles, it doesn't sound like they're playing it that way. It sounds like it's very clearly an open G, which is real obnoxious. It has a lot more growl to it. Then the next measure, they play this little sort of chromatic, semi-chromatic walk-up. The groove completely changes from 8th note triplets to 16th notes. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3. Now that pattern's really easy. Maybe the picking might get some of you, but just keep it even, keep it steady, because it's a very rat-a-tat-a-tat-a-tat-a-tat, just very consistent rhythm. Here are the actual notes. E, 2nd fret of E, 3rd fret of E, 4th fret of E, which is E, F sharp, G, G sharp. Same exact pattern on the A string. So that's A, B, C, C sharp. Then D, open D. So you could play that, like so, or you could play it and play the D note there if you just kind of like to use your pinky finger. It sounds more like the first version to me. It's got kind of more of a bite to it as an open note. So then they go back into the, they kind of go into the more looser rendition of the main riff for the post-chorus. But as that happens, this is one of the coolest parts of the song to me, is George plays this. He plays, wrong notes. Here we go. He plays 14th fret B, 12th fret E, 10th and 9th of the same 2 strings. Then he goes over to the next pair of strings, G and B, and he plays the 7th fret. Now I'm borrowing only 2 strings. Be careful not to hit the high E string 3rd fret. And he hammers the 8th fret of B and takes his finger off. So it's 7 and 7 here, 7 and 8, back to 7 and 7. Does it twice. Now at the same time, Billy Preston is on the Fender Rhodes, and he's playing the same thing, just harmonized. And so collectively, what it sounds like they're, when you put it all together, really it's just a nice just adventure through different inversions of an A chord again, and then a D going to a D sus4 and back to D. And so really, if you kind of want to make that sound more full than just what George played, say for instance, if you're in a single guitar band and it's just you and you don't have a keyboard player to play with, a way to fatten that up is just to play the full triad of A, which is 14, 14, 12. Then what would look like a D shape, but it's really A, 9, 10, and 9. And instead of going here, just take that D shape all the way actually down to where you think of an open D chord. Don't hit the D string, just play the top 3 and hammer that sus4 on the 3rd fret with your pinky. Cool. Then on to the bridge. Now the bridge is just a series of power chords. E5, open to E and 2nd fret A, G5, 3rd fret and 5th fret, then 5th fret of A and 7th fret, and then they land on an A, which is open and 2nd fret. Now, what's happening with that part, once again, Paul's screaming. Love it. All right, that's the bridge. Now, what happens with that is basically some lines. I'm not going to recreate the rhythm here. I'm just going to show you what he's using. He plays unison bends kind of throughout. And this is George, by the way. And he's playing the 12th fret of the E and the 15th fret of the B. He's playing them together, but he's bending the B string to match the E string. If you don't know what unison bend means, unison is when two instruments play the exact same note. Like if you're ever in a choir and you're singing the same note as the person in your section. These two strings are both playing an E, but the difference is we're bending one of them to match. So that's why it's called a unison bend. So you have, so you want to get them in tune. And they kind of rock out with that. Then they do a unison bend here at the 10th fret of B, so you're going to match it with the 12th fret of G. And then you have, then you have the 10th fret of the E and the 13th fret of B. And it's roughly that idea. And then lastly, that concludes where the bridge chord ends. And one of my favorite, I don't know if it's a mistake or what, I love that they kept it because it's so ugly, it's pretty, is George bends the 7th fret D note, which is the G string, by the way. He bends it a whole step. And this is the only thing that's happening here. That's just on an island all by itself. You know, and he plays 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. And so what's going on there is he's bending that note. First off, he's playing eighth notes for 7 beats. He starts on beat 2, and he's going 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Maybe 4 and, maybe he hits one more and. But what's so funny about it to me, what makes me chuckle, is that he bends the whole note, the whole step. And he's vibratoing it, frantically. And so he goes sharp. So he goes between an E and an F, and he kind of hangs there for a minute. So it gets out of tune, and it's beautiful. There would be in tune. And he's... And he's doing this thing real similar to what Clapton did in While My Guitar Gently Weeps, where he's kind of bending a note and he's vibratoing it and he's kind of echoing it, or not echoing it, what am I trying to say? He's bringing it back down to pitch. So he's kind of using microtones here, like in between notes, almost like playing a slide where you can hear every little frequency. 1, 2, and 3. And he just stops on the D, and you're back. Anyway, that's the 5 parts. Have fun with that.